Hi friends, happy Wednesday. Today we are going to keep talking about When Marian Sang, and we will be reading the next part in our story. Today is exciting because we are going to finish the story and see how it ends, while also combining what we learned on Monday and what we learned on Tuesday to answer some questions about the text. As we read today, please make sure that you remember that the genre or the type of book that When Marian Sang is historical fiction. Historical fiction, the historical part, is about parts that are in history. And if they happen in history, that means those are real facts. So for example, some real facts in our story are that Marian Anderson was a real singer and she performed at the Lincoln Memorial in real life. We will read more about that today. The fictional part, or the make-believe part, are some of the other details that the author makes up to make the story more exciting. So it's a mix of history and fiction. That's why we call it historical fiction. Before we jump into the end of our story today, we want to make sure that we are thinking about gist. The gist retells the story. The way that we can retell stories using gist is thinking about these three things. The first thing being the topic. We practice our topic every day during Article a Day. So we already know that the topic is who or what the text is mostly about. Your gist should always have the topic. Your gist should always say who or what it's mostly about. After you determine the topic, you want to think about 2, maybe 3 and most important things that you learned. If you're retelling, what is absolutely necessary for someone who you're telling the story to know for it to make sense? If it's something you just can't leave out no matter what, that means it's important. If it's something that you like, but that you don't need for it to make sense, it's not so important. And last but not least, we want to make sure that we are zooming out. When we say holistic view, all that means is that we want to make sure that we are talking about the whole text. We don't want to get stuck just in our favorite part. We want to make sure that we're talking about the whole paragraph or the whole page or the whole story, depending on the question or depending on what part of the story we're reading. So again, our 3 steps for gist are the topic, who or what it's mostly about, 2, maybe 3 most important things that you learned, and zooming out so it's about the whole text. For what we've read so far about When Marian Sang, if we think about the gist to remember where we left off yesterday, we know that the topic, who or what is mostly about Marian. Here we see Marian looking at the crowd when she was performing and singing in Europe. Some of the most important things that we have learned so far about Marian is that she gets a singing coach. She gets a singing coach when she decides that she wants to be a better singer, but they don't let her go to music school because of the color of her skin and segregation. But she finds her own singing coach. After she finds her singing coach, she travels to Europe, just like I mentioned, so that she can continue to practice being a better singer by performing to mixed crowds, not segregated, but Black and white people together, as well as learning different languages to sing opera in. She did both of those things in Europe, and she went to Europe after she got her singing coach. And we know that when she went to Europe, audiences loved her. Some of them thought that she was the most beautiful singer that they had ever heard. So if we combine all of these things, our topic, with those big moments, we can say that the gist, or retelling what we've learned so far, is that Marian studied singing and went all the way to Europe to sing for different audiences. Even though this is just one sentence, that tells me about that whole part of the text. That's why we practice gisting, so that we can retell long parts of the text or the whole text in just one sentence. So we see here, this doesn't go on and on and on, but it still tells me what the story is about with the topic, those important events, and thinking about the whole story. Now that we've reviewed what we learned and read so far, we're going to start reading and finishing the story in the next video. Make sure that you follow along, because today your exit ticket will be a report card grade. So when it's time to answer those questions, you want to make sure you've been listening to the story so you are ready. Here we go.